Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well and staying safe and being kind to yourselves. I know at this moment in time things are a little bit difficult, so make sure that you are looking after yourself both in body, soul and mind. Grab yourself a bar of chocolate, run yourself a bath, go out for a walk, look after yourself, stay safe because you are important. So today's video, I'm staying on the university track because I've really been enjoying doing lots of different university videos. And today's video is going to be about how to effectively take lecture notes at uni. So I know this was something that I had no clue on how to do when I entered uni, and for me it was very much a learning as I went, and I'm still trying to find out the particular best way for me to take notes. Also, just to say, if you don't know, I study English and drama at the University of Birmingham, so my tips are going to be slightly based towards more like humanities subjects. I've never personally been to a scientific or kind of maths centered lecture before, but having said that, a lot of the stuff I talk about in today's video is very generic, so it can pretty much apply to any lecture at all. So please just take in mind that there is no hard fast rule with these lecture notes, and how best to take them is totally up to you. But also, this is completely from my experience, and my experience is of humanity-based lectures. Okay, so let's roll the intro card and get into the video. So if you don't know, a lecture is essentially majority of the time it's about a 50-minute long talk given by a professor or an expert in the subject that you are taking. And every single week the lecture will be different. Sometimes things can run on for a continuous week. So for example, by doing literature, sometimes if it's a big book like The Lord of the Rings, we do 2 weeks worth of Lord of the Rings rather than just one. It can be quite overwhelming sitting in a lecture hall with sometimes like hundreds of people listening to the same lecture and thinking, I don't really understand this. First thing to say, lectures are supposed to be challenging, so you're expected to be challenged in your thinking. And if there are times where you just think, I will never get this, I won't understand, that is not the case, you will. It's good to be challenged, and it's good to have your thinking widened, because otherwise there would be no point with university, right? My second tip is to find what medium works for you. So I have been in a lecture hall where we've had people write on their laptops, write on their tablets, or write in a notebook. I have seen someone write on their phone before. I really wouldn't recommend this just because I think a phone is very much a centre of distraction and it's quite small. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend a phone, but you know, something like a tablet or a computer really works for people, especially if maybe you're a slower writer and you're better at typing. Just find out what works better for you. I personally write because I'm a faster writer than I am typer, and I also like to go back over my writing notes, and I like to draw kind of symbols and sketch things a little bit sometimes, highlight, all that kind of jazz, which I feel like I don't necessarily always do on a laptop. As you can see here, I've got one colour and I just kind of symbol and make things my own because that's what works for me and that's how best I retain information. So finding out that kind of thing is really important and really useful. My next tip would be, don't attempt to write everything down. This was something I tried to do in my first year, and the first thing is that you're never going to get it all down. It's just never going to happen. The teachers talk too quickly, and also who's going to want to read back over a 50-minute transcript? Don't be scared if you're not writing anything down for a few minutes, and if there's a kind of an overarching point, like for example this person was involved in the World War as a soldier, just write down that. You don't have to write down all the preceding information that the teacher talks about. But don't attempt to write down everything. It's not going to be useful for you at the end of the day. And also find out what's exciting to you. The next thing is just keep it simple. And honestly, lecturers will sit there and use fancy words and they'll talk in long sentences. But really, at the end of the day, if their point is that someone died in 1943, just write that down. Sometimes it's useful to write down a particular word or a phrase that they've said in a lecture because you're like, that's a nice one, I like that. But yeah, don't attempt to write everything down, or if you don't understand the language, you don't have to use that language. I would say that if there is a term or a particular turn of phrase or word that a lecturer is using and you want to make sure that you know what it is, write it down and then you can ask after in the seminar or find out for yourself. My next tip is timestamps. I know it's a little bit different because lectures are being recorded at the moment, so it doesn't necessarily apply to now, but if and when we get back to normal lectures, writing down timestamps is really useful if you want to go back over a certain thing that a lecturer has said. So a lot of the time lectures are recorded but don't count on it. Please turn up to your lectures because that is always a good thing to do. But a lot of the time lectures are recorded and they start on the hour and they finish at 10 to the hour. So say for example, around 15 minutes, they talk about something that you don't quite understand or you missed it. They said something really important and you want to go back. Just write in the corner 15 minutes and then you can go back to the recording, go back to that 15 minutes and listen around, slow it down, write down exactly what you need to do. Kind of similar to timestamps is writing down questions or moments in the lecture that you didn't understand. So you will have a lecture prior to having a seminar, and a seminar is a smaller group of people where you discuss and go further beyond what the lecture has told you. So if there was a moment in the lecture that you just think, I've tried to look it up online, I've tried to figure it out and I just don't get it, then bring it up in a seminar. That is what a seminar is for. Don't feel embarrassed about asking those questions because the majority of the time other people are either thinking the same thing, or when you say it, people are like, that's a really good question, I'm so glad you said it. Honestly, it's useful. And also, really good thing is that lecturers or teachers will see that you are engaged and you're getting involved. Another thing I would definitely say, and it sounds really simple, but you would not believe the amount of people who don't do this, and I get it, 9 AM on a Monday morning is never a nice time, but come prepared. I know this sounds so simple, but you don't want to be sitting there in the lecture with, your pen running out or your laptop losing charge or wanting a glass of water and not being able to leave. Even if you are just using an electrical item, do bring a notepad and pen because sometimes it is useful to draw particular things. Sometimes the Wi-Fi goes, sometimes your charge goes, or whatever it might be. Another tip I would say, which is really useful, is that a lot of the time lectures are talked about in sections. So you might start off with context of the person or context about the time period, and then you'll go into different themes. It's really useful when teachers block out the structure at the beginning and tell you exactly where you're going. When you realise you're going on to a new point, do a new paragraph or highlight it, or note down the title, because then it's so much easier rather than seeing a continuous spew of prose. So for example, my lecturer really liked using secondary quotes in the lecture, and so every single, as we can see here, so there's the title of the lecture, always note that down, that's also important. So that's one secondary quote, that's 2, 3, 4, and I've blocked them out so I know exactly who's saying what and what different secondary quote it is. And finally, my final tip is that it is a work in progress and you will find out what works best for you. Writing down in a notebook with tags is not going to work for every single person. So don't worry if for the first 2 years at uni, things just aren't really working out for you. You will find eventually what is working for you. And even now to this day, I'm still continuing to change up the way I take notes. And taking lecture notes can be difficult. And there are going to be some lectures where your particular note-taking strategy is going to work and the structure is going to look beautiful. And there are some weeks where you get a different lecture or this topic is going to be a bit different, and that's going to kind of make your structure not really work or make you have to shift the way in which you're taking notes. That's okay. Don't be scared to get things wrong and be prepared to be challenged, because that's what university is all about. Okay, and that's the end of this video. I hope that you found this useful, and I hope that this has given you a bit more of an idea of what it is like to take lecture notes at uni. Don't get too het up about it. You will figure it out in the end, and it is all part of the process. And I hope you have a good day and stay safe. Bye!